Hello everyone and welcome back. What I'm going to do today is show you some other techniques and continuing on a painting I've been working on in my spare time. This is a small painting, now in my hands. You can see it's not that big a painting, it just about fits in the camera angle. So this is an acrylic painting. This is an underpainting, which is what I do on a lot of my paintings before I start using the oil paint on the top. Now, you're going to wonder what on earth this painting is. This is an undersea fantasy painting. It's based on real creatures and real imagery, but it will be fantasy when it's finished. And what I've used is some, I don't know if you can see these, I have a little sketchbook here that I have loads and loads of little random scribbles in. And these little sketchbooks are great for carrying around. You can pick up this size pretty much anywhere. This is A6 in UK size, which is, and I will let you know, for those of you who don't use these sizes in your country, I think it's only the UK that uses these, it's just under 6 inches by just over 4 inches, so, you know, there you go, that's how large my little sketchbook is. The painting is 30 centimetres, just under 12 inches, by, I'd say about just under 9 inches, say about 22.5, 23 centimetres. And now I'll show you the pictures. I had an image in my mind of doing a deep sea scene with some strange creatures that are a mixture between dragons and fish, because that's how my mind works. So we have here, you can't see it, there we go, if I tilt it a little there. I took the imagery from eels and underwater landscapes found in the abyssal oceans, and also from things like vents, hot vents. So what we're going to do is a deep blue background, blues, lilacs, purples, with two. I had originally put 3 eel-like creatures in, but I'm going to put 2 in, and a vent showing bright red as a contrast, like a vent into magma where there's lava sitting. And I've just done some squiggles here on what the creatures are going to look like. They'll get refined later, but it's going to be sort of dragonish, but with a very eel-like fishy appearance. So that's that. What you might also find is that, well, it's coming apart now, but I usually put on the very edges of my canvases a line of masking tape. What this is supposed to do is to prevent dribbles, but as it's coming away, because it's been ages since I've started this painting, as it's coming away I'll probably get dribbles down the sides, but I can paint over those later. But if you do this fresh with the painting and are working on a painting, it does prevent some of the dribbles going down, but it probably won't help very much here. So what I started with on this painting was a rough filling in, going from back to front, of all the different parts of the landscape, from the background, which is here and here, midground, foreground, to get a sense of depth. And what we usually do as artists, and what you'll see in a lot of paintings, and you'll see yourself if you look out on a misty morning across some countryside or something, or even a cityscape, is you'll see that things that are further away often tend to be fainter than things that are closer to you, and lighter in colour. So this is a really good way of getting some depth into a painting. Now this is all just very rough, it will all be refined as the painting goes on. So what I also have are some paints. We're going to do a wash today, and I'll show you how to do a wash. This is all thoroughly dried, because it's acrylic, it dries really quickly. This is completely dried and it's very rough, and you know, it's just a basic start in painting. So for all this painting I've used a combination of these paints: Winsor & Newton Galeria Acrylic, Winsor Blue, which is a nice standard sort of dark blue, but it's not dull and it's not greyish, it's a nice rich royal blue colour. I've used, let me see, Daler-Rowney System 3 Heavy Body Deep Violet. It's a really nice standard purple. It's a really nice colour. It's neither too red nor too blue, but it does tend to be on the cooler side. I collect paints, you know, I pick up paints everywhere, all artists tend to, and you find that you get given them as presents, or you buy them in sales, or you just need them. So I have a lot of different brand names and styles of paint, but I find acrylics usually work okay together, as do different brands of oils, as long as you're using regular oils and not water soluble. If you're using water soluble oils, strongly suggest you keep to the same brand, just so you don't mix them with your non-water soluble oils. But as most acrylics, in fact all acrylics as far as I'm aware, are water soluble, you can mix and match them to varying degrees of success. And the final colour I have is this very old Winsor & Newton Galeria Flow Formula acrylic in a really, really nice permanent magenta. Permanent magenta means it won't fade, it's an opaque colour. All these colours are opaque, and the heavy body on the purple, as you will see, heavy body, refers to it's got a lot of pigment in the carrier, a lot more than you'd usually expect. So it's a very strong, opaque colour. Right, so we'll get started now. And once again, here's my takeaway container. I don't eat that many takeaways, honest, for which I'm using as a palette. Again, you can use one of these, or you can use a professional palette, which is highly recommended. I use these because I don't get on with regular palettes, and these for me are just as good, but they're a lot more flexible. A regular palette will be a lot stiffer, but they're just as easy to clean. And as I'm not going to do much today, I've only put the 3 colours out, small amounts, and the plastic obviously will not soak up any of the paints. It will take a little longer for the paint to dry, because one of the problems with acrylics is working with them and keeping them moist when you're working with them, so you can still use them and they don't dry up and go hard and crack. So that's that, and we'll just lay that gently down there. What we've also got is my jar of water. Remember what I said about keeping your jam jars and cleaning them out, with 2 brushes. I've also got some tissue ready for dabbing on. Now for this painting, as I'm just doing wash, so this will only be a quick video, I've got 2 brushes. I've got a nice filbert brush, which means a rounded edge. It's quite an old one, but it works well for doing washes because you don't need, it doesn't need to be, the bristles don't need to be in perfect condition. This is really, I tend to keep old brushes for doing acrylic washes. And I've also got, although it's a little bit tatty now and it needs replacing, a nice flat brush. This will need replacing eventually, but I will probably use the filbert mostly, and as preference I use short-handled brushes because I find them easier. You can use long-handled brushes, whatever's easiest is always the best. So what we're going to do, we've got the painting here, it's already done and it's all perfectly dry. So what I'm going to do is get some water, and we're doing a wash, so we want to gently tease some of the pigment over into the centre of the palette. Now, because this is a plastic palette, you will see the paint resist. I don't have a problem with this, you know, you'll see it happen. You can still see the colour, a bit of purple, and because I want it to look unusual, I'm going to use some of this magenta. It's a fancy painting after all, it doesn't have to be too realistic. It's nice to have an element of realism. Right, now the trick with doing washes is to get the paint quite thin and desaturated in the water. I want it a bit more pinky than that. Alright, now what we do is I test a little bit. Yep, that looks too dark. I don't want it that dark. So get that tissue, get it away. Now acrylic, it will dry in no time. Okay, let's put that there. So we still want it very, very thin. This is my technique. You'll find many artists use various techniques to do washes and things, but the principle is the same. You're putting a very thin layer over an underpainting to get a particular effect. Let's try that. That's all right. Probably need to. What you can do is put water directly onto the canvas and drag. So I'm using as little paint as possible. It's still coming out quite dark, and you'll see a resist going on here. Some of the paint is resisting being spread. But that's not to worry for this event, this painting, because that's an effect that's quite useful for me. So you're just building up. Don't worry about going over my characters, because I've got drawings that will tell me exactly what they're supposed to look like. Some people do really like to mask off their main parts of their painting so that paint doesn't go over them. That's absolutely fine, and it's actually recommended if you're unsure to do that with your painting. And just take it across. There we go, and we have a wash. Simple, very easy, and you can see how it's changed immediately the character of the background. You've got a lot more depth all of a sudden. Now this is going to be a relatively dark painting, so this is one wash, and when that's dry you can put another one on. Note that the one thing I am avoiding, or trying to, I've got a few little bits gone through, is this chasm here, because I'm going to be putting red paint on that. Red is very difficult to get opaque, and I'd rather not. I'd rather leave it white for the moment so that I can get the colours that I want. If I do accidentally scrape some paint across, I can simply go over it in white acrylic or gesso even, before I want to carry on with it, with the red. So there you go, and that is a wash. And I hope you're enjoying those little videos, and when I can I try and get them out. But yes, so this will be shown, I'll show you another one when this is fully dry. Thank you for watching.